500,000 UN soldiers, stretching all the way to the horizon. It was the largest army a medieval dynasty had ever mobilized, now descending upon a small country armed with nothing more than the will and steadfast heart of its people. In this war, which god would protect the nation? The 13th century. The Mongol Empire extended its iron arm across Asia and Europe. The hooves of its cavalry trampled countless kingdoms, turning brilliant civilizations into ashes. After completely annexing the Song Dynasty, Kublai Khan turned his gaze toward the sea. In 1281, a massive fleet of 140,000 troops and 4,000 warships descended upon Japan. But the legendary divine wind sank the eastward dream of the empire, leaving wreckage drifting along the shores of Kyushu. 2 years later, in 1283, UN forces under Sogetu advanced into Champa. Under a fierce assault, the capital Vijaya fell, forcing the Champa king to retreat into the deep forests. Yet the tropical climate wore down the UN army, unaccustomed to the sweltering lands far from the northern steppe. The bitter failure on the seas of Japan and the quagmire in Champa did not extinguish Kublai Khan's ambition. On the contrary, he grew ever more determined to swallow the lands between China and the Eastern Sea, coveting the fertile plains of Southeast Asia. And in the winter of 1284, once more, the shadow of the Mongol UN cavalry poured south. This time, the main target was Viet, a stubborn bone lodged in the throat of his dream to dominate the East. The news of the UN army's advance pounded into Thung Long like relentless war drums, striking the heart of every Vietnamese. The court understood clearly that behind the probing decrees and sweet promises of borrowing a path to fight Champa lay Kublai Khan's treacherous scheme, feigned friendship to attack a neighbor. In 1282, at the Bin Than conference, some cowered in fear, advising that the kingdom sue for peace, offer tribute, and delay war. But the veteran ministers, survivors of the 1258 invasion, were united in their resolve to resist. In October 1283, Emperor Tran Nan Tong appointed Grand Prince Tran Hongjiao as supreme commander of all Viet forces, entrusting him to lead the country in resisting the UN. Immediately, Hongjiao Vuong deployed his generals, Tran Bin Trong to guard Bin Than, Tran Kandu at Van Dan, while other commanders secured strategic positions. He himself established the main base and appeared, ready to move and strike wherever news that Yuan forces were massing in Guangxi, preparing to march through Lang Son. Emperor Tran Nan Tong summoned elders from every corner of the realm to the royal court at Dien to decide peace or war. Candlelight flickered upon the silver hair of 100 elders. In the solemn, tense air, the emperor's voice rang like a bronze bell. The answer came without delay. From every bench, from weathered lips, a roar rose like crashing waves. Fight, 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 an iron oath, a collective vow of an entire people. Viet had chosen its path. Fight to the end. To reach Thung Long, the Yuan would first need to break through the natural fortress of the northern passes, Ka Li, Tiat Luok, Zhongban, Chilang, all sheer limestone ridges guarding the way south. Behind them stretched a narrow bottleneck valley between mountain and river, the inescapable road every northern invader had to tread. Just a few dozen miles further stood Noi Bang Pass, the shield protecting Van Keep, the very gate to the capital itself. If Noi Bang fell, the road to Van Keep would lie wide open, and from there, the path to Thung Long. Understanding this, Grand Prince Tran Hongjiao personally led elite troops to hold Kai Kap Mountain in the Noi Bang Pass. He strengthened the border defenses, archers and crossbowmen hidden in the forested slopes, massive stones poised to crush cavalry below, ambush squads lying in wait along narrow paths. Every step the UN army took brought them deeper into Viet's steel web. The second invasion began with a colossal UN force of nearly 500,000 troops. Not one army, but 3 icy daggers aimed at the heart of Viet. The eastern main thrust, over 300,000 men under Togon and Algu, advanced from Ningming into Lok Chau, splitting into 2 columns to outflank. The western force, 50,000 troops from Yunnan under Nasir al-Din, marched toward Tuyen Quang to join in a pincer against Thung Long. The southern host, 100,000 men from Champa under Sugetu pushed northward. On January 27, 1285, Togon hurled forward 100,000 elite vanguard under Sun Yu, Mongol heavy cavalry, into Kali Pass, held by generals Zhou Vi and Zhou Hu. War drums thundered against cliffs, horse hooves rolled like thunder, and the Yuan surged forward like a tide of steel. From the battlements, arrows rained like storms, boulders crashed like waterfalls. Blood soaked the earth. Though they fought to their last breath, the defenders were overwhelmed. Zhou Vi was captured. Zhou Hu fought until his final moment, dying a hero's death. Ka Li had fallen. Thiet Lok, then Xilang, were struck in succession, collapsing into Yuan hands. The pincer closed, leaving Neubang isolated, the final fortress before Van Keep. There, Tran Hung Jiao commanded in person. For days, the narrow pass was a furnace of fire and blood. Fog-shrouded cliffs, volleys of arrows and crashing stones rained down, ambushes struck the flanks. Yet under the crushing weight of Mongol cavalry, the defenses of Neubang eventually gave way. Lines shattered, communications collapsed, and Tran Hung Jiao was forced to withdraw toward Van Keep through Mountain Pass. At Baitan Wharf, his loyal aide Yet Kiao waited, refusing to leave until he had seen his commander. When they met beside the rippling river, smoke of battle clinging to his armor, Hung Jiao spoke words of unshaken trust, then boarded the waiting boat for Van Keep. Other generals too rallied their remnants there, preparing for the decisive stand. Meanwhile, the Western Yuan force found themselves bogged down in highlands, drenched by winter rains. Roads turned to rivers of mud. Ambushes under Tran Nhat Duat destroyed bridges, struck supply lines, and cut down scouts. Nasir al-Din's army ground to a halt, unable to reach the plains. Thus, at Van Keep, Togon was left to face Tran Hung Jiao's strongest defenses without the support of the Western Arm. On the banks of the Kin Thai River, the supreme commander of Jai Viet stood, eyes fixed on the rising smoke to the north, where the enemy drew near. Drums beat urgent rhythms, summoning soldiers and civilians alike. Ramparts rose higher, stakes driven into the riverbed, stones piled along embankments, torches lining the night, blazing like a wall of flame. Van Keep was not merely a stronghold, it was the last gate to Thonglong. When Emperor Tran Han Tong himself arrived at the camp, he questioned his court and generals. The enemy is mighty. Should we yield or should we fight? At once a general cried out, kneeling, "Your Majesty is merciful, but if you truly wish to surrender, then take my head first, then surrender after." The words struck the hearts of all like an arrow. Courage surged, bows tightened, spears steadied. In the distance, the thunder of Mongol hooves shook the earth. Van Keep stood ready for the greatest battle yet since the invasion began, and that story will be told in the next chapter.